this is like this whole Mitt Romney, Bain Capital, where are his tax havens? How much money does he have in Switzerland? How much money does he have in the Caymans? When did he leave Bain? And when did he know that he had left Bain? Now Ed Gillespie coming out over the weekend saying, actually he left, in 2002, 2003, but it was retroactive to 1999. Right. So what does that mean? Retroactive? Thank you, Jim. I think this is just incredible. I mean, just incredible. There's no other way to say it. Mitt Romney, and by the way, 15 minutes ago, President Obama pointed out that Mitt Romney's tax plan, and by the way, Paul Krugman has a great piece about this in today's New York Times. And, basically, well, back to Mitt Romney's tax plan, that his tax plan will be a huge tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. Now, what Paul Krugman points out is he starts out by saying, you got these nannery nanobs in the Democratic Party and on the so-called left, people like Ed Rendell, saying, you shouldn't be going after Mitt Romney for being a rich businessman. After all, some of my best friends are rich businessmen. I mean, essentially, that's the message, right? Bill Clinton kind of saying the same thing. Well, I'm not sure that that's so seemly. With the Clinton Foundation needs some money from these people. Whatever. And Paul Krugman says, that's nonsense. I mean, come on, give me a break. The reason why Romney's riches and where he chooses to put them, which offshore island he puts them in, the reason those are a legitimate public policy debate is because they are meta to public policy. Right? The whole public policy thing is, well, okay, my tax plan gives you a 4.3% deduction and the 4.442, you get into the numbers and you absolutely get into the weeds of figures don't lie, but liars can figure. And the Republicans and conservatives are so good at this. Did you know that Obamacare we're going to see above 22%, 15%? And bottom line is that Romney's tax plan is to cut taxes on millionaires and billionaires, and Obama's tax plan is to cut taxes on people making under $250,000 and jack up taxes on people making over $250,000. Now, you tell me there's not a starker difference in the world between those two things. But even when you talk about the details of that and that whole $250,000 thing and all that stuff, the media won't touch it. Why? A, they figure if you're talking real numbers, people's eyes glaze over. So we're not going to do that because we program to an average 7th grade mentality. Right? I mean, welcome to network news. Number one. And number two, whenever they talk about numbers, the other side comes out and says, oh, those are your numbers. Well, here's my numbers. So if you offer a meta argument, an argument that isn't the actual detailed argument, but is meta to it, is a substitute for it that everybody gets. Like Obama still had student loans when he was in the U.S. Senate, and he was only able to pay them off because his book became a bestseller. And Romney has so many hundreds of millions of dollars that he's got $100 million in a 401k. Figured that one out. He gave $100 million to his sons. Figure that one out. And he's got, in fact, in his disclosure forms, where it said that he was working at Bain Capital, the ones that he filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission under threat of perjury, as in felony if you're lying. In those forms that he filed with the SEC in 2001, he said he was the sole shareholder. In other words, the only owner of Bain Capital. He was the CEO, the chief executive officer of Bain Capital, and that he was the chairman of the board of directors of Bain Capital, and that he earned over $100,000 a year. Now, the SEC requires you to say, and this is a law this is kind of an archaic law, it goes back several decades, back to when $100,000 was big bucks. Back, during the before the Reagan era, when CEOs typically made 30 times what their workers made, and back in the 70s, $20,000 a year was a good salary. So the CEO might make $150,000, $200,000 a year. So if you made more than $100,000 a year, you had to declare it. Now, it could be $1 million, it could be $5 million, it could be $30 million, it could be $70 million. But what you have to fill in the little form there is over $100,000, and that's what Mitt Romney filled in. And I think that's one of the reasons he's not releasing his tax returns. Because you will see, I predict, you will see that Mitt Romney was paid as the CEO and as the chairman of the board of Bain Capital in 1999, in 2000, in 2001, in 2002, and finally when he sold his share in it, or a chunk of it, in 2003, that he was paid probably tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, that was his cash-in time. And odds are, given, over the last couple of years, given the way that the market crashed, odds are, and that he makes most of his living sitting on his butt waiting for the dividend check to arrive in the mail. Therefore, he only pays a maximum 15% income tax, actually 13.9%. But the point is, he's the investor class. He's not the working class. And the investor class has these little cool things. Like if you're a working class person and last year you made $30,000, $40,000 at your job, or let's say the year before last, and then last year you lost your job for half the year, and you were on unemployment or you were working part-time at Walmart, and finally you got, even a part-time job, so at the end of the year you only made $12,000, so your income went from $30,000 a year to $12,000 a year. Well, you can't average those things out and say, well, I had a $28,000 loss or an $18,000 loss. Therefore, give me back some of my tax money from the year when I made $30,000. You can't do that. Working class doesn't get to do that. Working class pays up to 35% in taxes. The investor class, the capitalist class, and there's really not that many of them, maybe a couple 100,000 in this country, maybe not even that, of people who actually are capitalists, people who put money out into investments and all of their income, they live on their investments. The Paris Hilton class. Those people pay a maximum 15% income tax rate because investors are so much more important as human beings, after all, don't you know? And so anyhow, Mitt Romney says over 100,000. I'm guessing it's tens of millions, maybe more. His tax returns would show that, which is why he doesn't want to release them. And so anyhow, a couple of minutes ago, President Obama said Romney's tax plan disproportionately helps the wealthy. Yeah, it does. Surprise, surprise. 4 hours ago, top Romney advisor Kevin Madden told NBC News that the calls will never end for Mitt Romney's tax returns. No matter how many years he releases, it won't be enough. Over the weekend, he said, hey, John Kerry only released 2 years. I'm only going to release 2 years. Right. He'd been a senator all that time. Every year he'd released his tax returns. So there were 20 years of John Kerry's tax returns out there. So that when that gets pointed out to Mitt Romney, he goes, well, his wife never disclosed her, never released her. Well, his wife is independently wealthy. She used to be married to a different senator, Senator Hines. And then he died and, she started sparking with John and they hooked up. But she kept all her money as her money. John was doing fine, thank you very much. And they had separate economic lives. And everybody knew she was rich. But she wasn't running for president of the United States. I haven't heard anybody say that they want to hear Ann Romney's tax returns. And I guarantee you, Ann Romney had income too. Well, maybe not, actually, because Mitt Romney took a $70,000 deduction last year for her horse. Can you do that? I can't. So, is Mitt's fortune bigger than we actually know? There's this little think about it from DemocraticUnderground.com over on DemocraticUnderground.com. Surprise. Is Mitt Romney's fortune even bigger than he claimed? Was his tax rate actually lower than 15%? Did he pay any taxes at all in some years? Are his offshore tax havens in Bermuda, Switzerland, and the Cayman Islands just the tip of the iceberg? Did he invest in companies that ship jobs overseas? Did he lie to the Massachusetts State Ethics Commission about his residency status when filing for governor, which is a felony? And it would also mean that his governorship was illegitimate. Right? I mean, right now, he's trying to tell you and me that he was a resident of Utah working on the Olympics in Salt Lake City in 2002. But he told the state of Massachusetts when he finished up the Olympics, halfway to 3/4 of the way through 2002, that he had been a resident of the state for a number of years, therefore he qualified to be governor because he had been flying back and forth to Massachusetts regularly for board meetings. Now he's saying, no, I had no board meetings. And then he told the Security and Exchange Commission that he had a controlling interest in Bain Capital, and now he's saying, I didn't have anything, I didn't control it. And here's the one that's not on this list that I would recommend people start putting it on the list. And that is, where did Mitt Romney vote in 2000 and 2002? Maybe if somebody in the chat room could track this down for me really quickly, I would appreciate it. When did Teddy Kennedy run for re-election and Mitt Romney stayed in kept his voter registration, bragged about it in the primary so that he could vote against Teddy Kennedy? Was that the 2000 election or the 2002 election? I don't know. But whichever one it was, either one of them would work. Question, did he lie about his residency so that he could vote? So you've got financial fraud, you've got voter fraud, you've got, concealing from the American people. I mean, what is going on with this guy? Bill Kristol, the guy who wanted the war in Iraq and the war with Afghanistan, now wants a war with Iran. He's asking for Mitt Romney to please release his tax returns. It was 2000. Thank you. Shane just checked this out. It was, and Fritz DeCat throws it in the chat room. It was the 2000 election. So Romney goes to Salt Lake City in 1999, and he's so gone that he can't even show up in Boston for a meeting with Bain Capital, but he votes in Boston in 2000, presumably by absentee ballot. I don't know. Maybe that's legal. I'm surprised nobody's asking that question, frankly. But this all started with this Boston Globe thing on Thursday. Yesterday, Ed Gillespie comes out and he says, it's the 2 years, it's the standard that John Kerry did. No. And now they're saying, he retroactively quit. Right? In 2002 or 2003, he quit in 1999. I'm not making this up. This is what, I believe it was Ed Gillespie. It was one of his guys was on one of the Sunday shows, and he said, he retroactively resigned. Right. This is not going to go away. This is only going to get stickier and stickier. And I'm wondering how many others are wondering whether he's going to make it to Tampa. And if not, who are the Republicans going to put in to replace him? I mean, should Chris Christie and Tim Pawlenty and Bobby Jindal and Nikki Haley and the whole bunch of them, Sarah Palin, should they all, apparently she tried to get him last week or said something to the effect that caused some people to think that she was finagling around for a VP spot. And by the way, we just learned that Mitt Romney gave 20 years of tax returns to John McCain. Now, this is a media report. I can't attest its veracity, but I've seen it repeated in several places, that he gave 20 years of tax returns to John McCain. John McCain took one look at them and picked Sarah Palin. Now, that should tell you something, right? So anyhow, I would say to all those people who are, that long line, what was it, 12 dwarfs, Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, yeah. I would say to all of them, I'm not sure you could call Chris Christie a dwarf, but in any case, I would say to all of them, maybe you should seriously stop thinking about trying to be Mitt Romney's vice president, Ron Paul, another one, and instead think about going to Tampa and running for president. I mean, there may be an open space there. I'm waiting to hit InTrade one of these days, and probably, somebody should start this as a bet. You go over to intrade.com. It's this Irish betting site, and they're almost always spot on about American politics because you got a lot of Americans who are over there betting on politics, and they're well-informed people. And the good money right now is on Rob Portman and Pawlenty, Tim Pawlenty as vice president. But I'm waiting for somebody to put one up that says Mitt Romney will not be the party's nominee. I mean, we've still got a few weeks here. Is it possible that Mitt Romney won't be his own party's nominee because he is just like so badly, he has trashed himself? I mean, the question that George Will asked over the weekend, and I think this was just like brilliant, was the words to the effect of, the day John McCain lost the election, November 2008, Mitt Romney knew he was going to run 4 years later. He should have released everything the next day. We'll be right back. One last point I want to make, and it'll just take a minute or two, and then I'm going to put you on the air. And that is that people say, well, what's the big deal? What if he lied on a disclosure form about hundreds of millions of dollars? Or what if he lied about whether or not he was a legal voter in that state? I mean, so what? Lies are not that big a deal. Everybody tells lies, right? I have two words to answer that question. Bill Clinton. Or maybe I should say Monica Lewinsky. Or maybe I should say, remember Orrin Hatch saying, it's not about the sex, it's about the lie. They impeached a sitting president over lying under oath. Had Bill Clinton not been under oath, and had the word is had a slightly different meaning, he never would have been impeached. He was successfully impeached in the House of Representatives. He was not removed from office in the Senate, but just by the skin of his teeth. But the Republicans impeached a sitting president over simply telling a lie to cover up sex. And somehow that's a far more horrible thing in Republican world than lying to cover up hundreds of millions of dollars. $100 million in your 401k. $100 million here, $100 million there. I mean, come on, it's just